The Tech Educator Podcast is a proud supporter and member of the Education Podcasting Network. Check out edupodcastnetwork.com today for your favorite educational podcasts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tech Educator Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we are talking all about Raspberry Pi and how you can bring coding and STEM education into your classrooms. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for making TeacherCast your home for your professional development. I want to bring on Sam Patterson. Sam, how are you today? How are things out there in Palo Alto?
Things in Palo Alto are beautiful. It is spring and the weather is perfect, and I didn't have to go camping with the sixth grade this week. So everything's roses here, Jeff.
That is fantastic. I want to also bring on David Saunders. David, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for asking.
It is
beautiful day here in Connecticut.
It is good to see you. Did you do any camping recently with a bunch of middle school kids?
No, I did some living room camping, though, recently with some elementary school children that are my own. At home, we set up a tent inside and did a little sleepover.
Excellent, excellent. Today we're talking all about Raspberry Pi, and I have my little Raspberry Pi lit right here next to me. Say hello, Robert. Robert says hello. Sam, what is Raspberry Pi? What are we talking about today?
What we're talking about are tiny little computers that are about the size of a credit card, and they have multiple USB ports, an Ethernet port, and now they can even come equipped with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. But basically, in this small computer that's powered on a USB cord, so it only takes 5 volts to power this, you can connect all kinds of external equipment and sensors to this. You can use this in all kinds of classroom settings. It's a pretty revolutionary tiny computer built on mobile computing technology. And what we've been learning about and what we're here to share about today is really the place these can have in education.
That is pretty amazing. Where does somebody get a Raspberry Pi like that?
You can get these a number of different places. You can just order them off of Amazon. If you have a Micro Center or Fry's store in your area, you can walk right in and pick one up. They don't require any sort of licensing or advanced government inspection. They're about $35, depending on where you source them. And it's not that hard to get started. But what's amazing is that every computer that you buy actually supports a nonprofit foundation. And their goal is to get more computers into the hands of kids all over the world. The Raspberry Pi Foundation is located out of England, and they are working with a number of different organizations in order to support England's coding at all grade levels initiative. And the work they're doing is pretty awesome, and they have been doing trainings all over Europe for a while, and now they have started doing it in the US. And our guests today, as well as our ongoing co-hosts, have had experience in that training, and that's really what we're here to talk about today.
So we are here live, as we are every single Sunday night at 7 p.m. over on TeacherCast.tv. We have a great live audience tonight. If you guys have any links, please put them in the chat boxes. If you have any questions, please send them out. We are going to be manning our chats all night. And first of all, let's talk a little bit about our guest today. Sam, who do we have on our show tonight?
So we've got Marcos. And Marcos, can you introduce yourself and give people a kind of, I feel like if I was going to describe you, it would be this endless series of really cool projects you've been involved in, from like selfies in your garage, which is apparently covered on the news, to the work you're cranking out in your 3D workshop every day. So could you just give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Sam. First of all, Marcos Navas. I'm from New Jersey, Union City School District. I'm a tech facilitator there. Got involved with 3D printing after I moved next door to one of the biggest 3D printing gurus out. Decided, how do I bring this into education? Brought a couple into the school district, started 3D printing some cool projects, but then taking them to another level where it wasn't just 3D printing little knickknacks here and there. It was more, 3D printing things in the STEM classroom, and where it was really going cross-curricular. And then saw this opportunity for signing up for PiCademy, jumped all over it. It was one of the best PDs I've ever been to. But some of the other things I'm involved with, Maker Depot Academy, which is a local makerspace here in New Jersey, helping them with their curriculum and spreading the making love and the STEM love. Pretty much that's the goal.
It is nice to have more educators from New Jersey, and a big shout out to Maker Depot. They're doing some really, really nice things up there in North Jersey. You can check them out over at makerdepot, is it .com?
MakerDepot.com. You also have MakerDepotAcademy.org as well now.
Great stuff, great things. Let's just kind of dive into this here. Is it PiCademy? Is it PiCademy? David, what was this thing that you went to out in California?
It's called PiCademy. It's Raspberry Pi Academy, essentially, and they abbreviate it to PiCademy. And it is 2 days of free professional development run by the Raspberry Pi Foundation, specifically for teachers who are looking to find ways and hands-on experience to bring this type of computing and project making into their classroom. And so last year I had the opportunity to go to the Raspberry Pi Foundation in England for 2 days, and it was a fantastic experience. So I was really excited when I heard that they were going to start doing them here in the States.
Is this something that you had to audition for, or was it just apply and go? Is this something anybody without Raspberry Pi experience can go to?
Yeah, there was an application process. Sorry, Sam, go ahead.
No, yeah, there is an application process, but that application process, they are looking for people with little or no experience. They're looking for people who are in the right position to do great stuff with this. And they know that may not be people who are already really experienced with the Raspberry Pis.
I know when I applied, I had no experience. I mean, I owned a Raspberry Pi, believe it or not, but I never really played or tinkered with it. So this was the perfect opportunity for someone even who had no experience whatsoever with a Raspberry Pi to come in, get familiar, learn some of the basics, and then end up walking away having a good foundation of building great projects with kids.
So, Sam, I'm looking at this Raspberry Pi of yours. Maybe you can hold it up to the screen again. If I was to compare that to a machine that I might buy in the store, is it similar to a Mac Mini? Is it similar to a less expensive Windows device? Is it?
It's similar to an Android phone.
Okay.
Yeah. If you could take an Android phone and make it so that you could connect it to external wires and sensors and motors and such, and switch out the operating system quickly, it would be most comparable to that. They're fairly powerful. We could go into the specs, but it's not incredibly interesting. At this point, I can't quite use them as everyday computing devices because I can't get a browser that will accurately support Google Docs. I can do all kinds of things using various Linux-based word processors, but it won't quite fully support Google Docs.
Now, there's other small computers that are out there being used in schools today. What is the difference between a Raspberry Pi and an Arduino?
I'd say the biggest difference between a Raspberry Pi and the Arduino are the mission and people behind the machine.
Right.
Because
also,
Raspberry Pi Foundation is dedicated to, there are technical differences, but in the heart of it, like where I go for the critical difference is that the people behind the Raspberry Pi are dedicated to education, and they're building amazing stuff to do with education, and they're actively supporting teachers all the time. And Arduino's mission is wider. Now, could one of you guys tell us the real difference?
Raspberry Pi is more of a microcomputer as opposed to an Arduino, which is a microcontroller. So there's a little bit of difference. I find the Pi is a little bit more diverse, where it can pretty much handle both worlds, because you can slap on servos and a whole bunch of cool stuff on the Raspberry Pi as well. The Arduino is more just for a quick microcontroller. What I love about the Raspberry Pi, like Sam said, is really dedicated towards education. It's cheap. I like calling this the hackable computer because you can literally connect this to anything and make it alive. They also have a lot of different various types of Raspberry Pis. So what you have here is the Raspberry Pi 3, but you also have a $5 Raspberry Pi, which is the Raspberry Pi Zero, which is a little bit not as strong as the regular Raspberry Pis, but it's the size of a keychain. And it runs the same OS as a regular Pi 3 as well, but just a lot smaller. So for about $5, you can literally have a computer in in your back pocket that you can pull out at any time and hack anything you want.
Well,
what's interesting is, when we talk about these computers and how powerful they are, in a lot of ways, until you spend some time tinkering and building with these, it's difficult to really think of them appropriately because we keep using the word computer and we have a lot of preconceptions about what we do with a computer. Yeah. So I thought that what would give anybody listening a really good understanding of kind of what these machines can do is if we actually talked about the PiCademy experience, because I was really impressed with this professional development. It was a 2-day PD. It was very, very hands-on. I will admit to anyone, I'm a bad student. I'm not good at sitting still. I'm not good at listening. I'm really bad at taking direction. I mean, it's a nightmare, right? But I was totally engaged through PiCademy because of the way they structured the day. Now, David actually was able to come back and help with PiCademy because of his previous experience. David, could you talk a little bit, since you've been through twice as many as I have, talk a little bit about the structure of the PD that PiCademy puts together?
For sure. Yeah, so it's 2 days, like I'd mentioned, and day one tends to be sort of project-specific workshops. And so they split the group into two, and one group will work on maybe something like coding in Minecraft using the Python API, while the other group might be working on Scratch GPIO and doing physical computing using the Scratch GPIO software that's part of the Raspbian operating system, and basically using the exact same interface that they would for a normal Scratch program, but doing it with LEDs and with motors and things like that. And then they will swap. And so basically throughout that first day, you're doing these hands-on hour to an hour and a half sessions where you're getting some experience on putting things together and learning how they work, doing some coding. And then day two is largely a hackathon, like a full day hackathon where you group up around a project that is of interest to you, and you start working on putting a prototype together using the expertise of the people in the room around you, also the facilitators, and then of course the internet and all the information resources you can find there. And then the end of the day, there's a big share out, like basically like a gallery walk where people share what it is that they put together. And it's incredible what people can put together in a day and a half of work.
Right, and let's go ahead and go straight to that because that's the candy. Let's eat it first. Let's talk a little bit about the kinds of things that either we built or we saw other people build. Marcos, what did your group build?
Well, I was actually lucky enough to be one of the most talented people in this whole academy was Sam Patterson. So I was lucky enough to be in his group and hang out with him throughout the second day. But what we decided to build was actually a pretty cool, nifty project. So we took a Raspberry Pi and we put a sensor on it, attached a camera on it, and what we had was pretty much a board that when you came and read it, it snapped a picture of you because it sensed you in front of that board. And we had a whole series of pictures of people reading our directions and reading our project. I was blown away with some of the projects that these people came up with. I was blown away with the amount of talent in one room. Educators from all over the place, even from Puerto Rico, who I actually still in contact with. A makerspace from Puerto Rico sent a rep out to PiCademy. Refrans, obviously, Susan Herder, Nicholas, Kathy, but it was what a room full of talent. So when it came down to building out these projects, you had some amazing, amazing things on that board. My personal favorite is PiEditing Bear, where a group decided to grab a plush teddy bear. They took a normal Raspberry Pi, attached a Pi to the teddy bear, created a Twitter account for that teddy bear. So every time you tweeted that bear with the word pick in the tweet, the bear would shoot a picture of himself and tweet it right back to you. So the Raspberry Pi has this ability of turning things alive, putting them on the internet, and really making the world hackable.
That's right, kids. The Raspberry Pi can bring things to life. No, seriously, so right, better than Frankenstein. Because it's not epistolary and not nearly so chock full of Victorian ennui. Sorry. Oh, I'm such an English major. Now, one of the things that really impressed me with the interactive was the fact that all of these tools were like interactive. And I remember one teacher she was an English teacher, and she turned the Raspberry Pi into an interactive reading log. And the students had to like shake the Raspberry Pi when certain things in the story happened, rock it back and forth when other things happened, turn it around when other things happened, and logged all of these events. So she could actually look at the data coming out of the Raspberry Pi and tell if the kids had done the reading.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's such a nice break from, the endless onslaught of comprehension questions.
Yeah. You also had a group who created their own robotic hand using a Pi. So they talked about, 3D printing prosthetics and things like that, but they decided to, out of ordinary items, they attached the Pi to it, and the hand was able to retract based on the Pi's data, which was pretty impressive as well.
That was a super impressive one. I also really liked the weather station that they put together in like a day, right? They connected the Pi camera. They in this box, they put it outside, and they created a Twitter account for it, and they connected it to, I think it was Weather Underground, and so that you could tweet at that account, and it would, in reply, send you a photo of whatever the sky looked like at that point, and the current weather for that location. And I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool. And it's something that's easy to port into so many of our classrooms because they do weather data logging. This is something they do. And that's where the Raspberry Pi gets really interesting to me.
Yeah.
When you can use it to interact and collect data in real life. And so some of the time we might use it, it might be all about learning about the Raspberry Pi, but other times I can think of ways that I'm going to use it on this campus in kindergarten and in third grade, where the Pi is essentially going to be an invisible tool that they use to collect information.
Yeah. The other powerful thing with the Raspberry Pis, it brings computer science to life. So the hot topic with coding and all this great stuff, but using the Raspberry Pi actually gives, students a visual of, wow, that's what coding can do. The other powerful side is these Pis, they come equipped with Minecraft, which is a hell of a tool for the classroom right now. All of these kids are going wild over Minecraft, and it comes with this awesome version of Minecraft where it's not just build and, do your worlds, but it's code Minecraft. So that opened up gates for me when I saw that side of Pi.
Right, and one of the projects when I was at PiCademy the first time tied together Minecraft with something that wasn't available at the one most recently, and that was Sonic Pi with Sam Aaron. And this group put them together so that as you were walking through Minecraft, it was laying down basically would play back loops that were created in Sonic Pi. And I just thought that was such a cool way of tying together two really interesting pieces of technology.
Oh, totally. So Kathy just mentioned, Kathy's in the chat. She was actually in the same group as Chris and I. And she posted a link in the chat to the project we modified. And it's really worth going to. It's raspberrypi.org/learning/parent-detector. And it's not that this is a super amazing project, but this is the kind of resource that's available, where essentially you have step-by-step instructions and you follow the instructions and you try to make it work. The instructions are usually a good 92% right? And there's all of these little tiny problems that you have to solve along the way. But that's what it's really about, because what we're doing when we ask kids to take a text and read the text and do what the text says.
Information text.
Right, it's information, like this is all literacy, right? This is all applied nonfiction reading. And then what they found, and I'm doing a bad job at quoting Invent to Learn right now, is that once students do this, when they figure stuff out by reading other people's directions, when they discover something, they want to write directions for other people to follow. Right.
Yes.
So, and they naturally want to do that. It's the power of how to. we are in the age of how to, because
Yep.
there are so many different things that we can do, and all you have to do is like follow the directions and use mostly somebody else's code and change it a little bit. You know, the conversation has really shifted from what language code will you learn to what project are you going to do and what code does that need.
Right. Also, the Raspberry Pi website, I thought, is so efficient, so well put together, especially for educators. When you go to the educator portion of their website, all the projects are there. Everything you need to run a Raspberry Jam or to learn a little bit more about Raspberry Pis is on that website. But what's cool, like Sam said, was it's all kid-friendly. You can literally print these out, give them to a student, and have them follow these step-by-steps. And it's encouraging all, you know, as he said, literacy. You know, you have that informational text, following directions. It's a great learning experience from beginning to end.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation, I think at ISTE, with Nathan Stevens last year, who said that what he did often was he had his students read through how-to tutorials, whether it be on Little Bits or Raspberry Pi forum or whatever, and basically rewrite them more effectively or more efficiently.
Right. I mean, that's it's great practice, and it works with even the youngest students. I know that there are people who've done. I think Michael did the Stomp Rockets snap guides. I think that was what he was calling the instructions they were building. I know another kindergarten teacher. I think it was Kinder Smorgasbord on Twitter. Did something where his kids designed something with Connects and then wrote instructions and sent them to other kids who then built them. Right, it's this.
That's awesome.
Right, but it's a very simple form of communication, and what Raspberry Pis allow us to do is to do more with that kind of interaction than ever before. After the Pi Foundation, or after the PiCademy, I discovered that I had 6 Raspberry Pis working in my 3D lab almost all the time. They were in my 3D
The
printer.
polars.
Yeah, and you know, so you've got a Raspberry Pi. And you've got 4 of these stepper motors that just look like this, but they don't have the word bad on them because they're not bad like this one is. And that's what, right? That's what controls these 3D printers. And it's just this board plus another board that brings the power in from the wall and converts it to low voltage and distributes the needed power to the stepper motors.
I most recently tweeted out a picture of an opened up Polar 3D, which exposed the Raspberry Pi 2 in there. So I'm interested to see now with the Raspberry Pi 3 and the enhancements they have there, if Polar is going to go that way and enhance their 3D printers. But either way, it was literally just a Pi sitting in the back of it. All I had to do was replace the OS. So it was just taking out a micro card and putting in a new one that Polar sent me, and my machine was working instantaneously. Exactly what David told me.
Right, and that's the thing. Like the nice thing about low-cost computing is you've got essentially 2 pieces to the Raspberry Pi. You've got a tiny little card that carries all the software that you can replace for about $20 at the max, and you've got this hardware card which is $35. And if something doesn't work, you replace one or both of those, and it will. You know, so that's that's one of the great things about this. Now, they're the kind of thing that I think 5-10 years ago I never would have put anything like this in the hands of kids. I mean, honestly, they're bare wire electronics, so if nothing else, when you're done handling them, you really should wash your hands. But they are, for being this exposed and this raw, incredibly kid friendly and fairly kid compatible. I have an after school club, and they haven't seriously wrecked anything until I started trying to set them up with mobile screens.
Right. I think also being open and exposed like this creates curiosity on the kids' side. You know, they every time they come across a Mac or they come across a PC, it's in its own enclosure. They never get to see the guts of a computer. So by showing, you know, kids a Raspberry Pi and pretty much everything's exposed, they really get a different understanding of what computing is and what physical computing is, because they're literally working with the board.
Right. I wish I had a better answer for this one. I was with a student the other day and a teacher, and we're looking at a Raspberry Pi because they'd never really seen one before. I'm going to try and get in front of the camera here. right? And they're like, all right, so the power goes in here, but then like what happens in between there and here? I don't understand it, right? And so like we're trying to follow the path and we're trying to understand all the little pieces to it, but that was a great opportunity for us to then step into a little bit of exploration on the electronic side.
Yeah.
Right. Now you say you looked at everything. Did you pop it under a microscope? Like, did you?
So
did
not
you
a
pop it under a
microscope.
magnifier at least?
I have one of those big light up magnifying
Right.
glasses on my table. Yeah, we did for sure.
Because most of it's visible either on one side or the other. I wouldn't be able to adequately explain it completely, but there's certainly more to go on. And even if you just look at it and you were to talk about how the CPU is kind of like the middle of the city, and you can see all of these roads going into the middle of the city and out of the middle of the city, right? And you can kind of do that. And you can even look at it as far as like other physical maps and talk about how, we design spaces in order to move resources around. And in this case, power and information are the resources. So we've got these different things. Now,
Sam, I think you just came up with a new app, right?
Yeah.
where it's a virtual CPU, and then you get to go in and sort of adjust all the different paths and routes and all of that to create different outcomes.
Right, there you go. You could call it like Sim City, maybe.
CPU City.
There's a great simulation. Let me see if I can get you the link, Sam, where kids play every kid plays a different part of the computer, and they have to actually go through a dialogue of what physical computing is. Gives them a great outlook of how a computer really works. So how the RAM is talking to this part of the computer and how the hard drive plays this role in the computer. Yeah, I'll send it over to you. A lot of times our kids are, they're always consumers of technology. Rarely are they on the other side where they're producing or breaking it down or looking at it from a different angle. I know one of the stations of a makerspace that we did over at Colin Powell is a break apart station. So instead of throwing out old computers, we throw them on the table. We allow kids to break them open. Look what's inside. What do you think this does? What do you think that does? Can you create a new computer off these broken parts? So just to expose them to that physical computing. And the Raspberry Pi is awesome in that sense where it puts physical computing into the hands of kids.
So over in the chat, we've got, we're going to get us caught up with them. Kind of questions about how do you start, what books should you get, and Kathy's reminding us to talk about AstroPi also.
Yeah,
for sure.
And in the discussion of what book they should get, someone mentioned Carrie Ann's book, and you have a very limited agenda we made up for the show. It was PiCademy, and Carrie Ann is awesome. So yeah. I'm more than happy to move into the part of the show where we just talk about how Carrie Ann is awesome. Because it's completely amazing. It's completely appropriate because she is totally awesome. Carrie Ann is the Director of Education for the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and she is just a wonderful person who is really, really good at her job, and her job is inspiring people to do amazing stuff with the Raspberry Pi. She has a YouTube channel called the Geek Girl Diaries, and that's GURL. I'm going to put the link to that, her geekgirldiaries.co.uk into the chat right now. And in these blogs, she outlines different projects. She sets up challenges for kids. She shares work that's been sent to her. Her book, The Adventures in Raspberry Pi, is an amazing guide written for kids, step by step, how to do stuff, really on target. And, it's, how do I say this? It's written at a point that even I find accessible.
Totally.
Really important.
And it's like 9 projects, right? From beginning to end, 9 projects. All the pieces that you need, like here are all the.
Did we lose you?
Project kind of done. Oh, did you lose me?
A little bit.
Hello.
All right.
I'm still here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, all good.
So there were like 9 projects in the book. It's fantastic. And then also I discovered last year, I think, that Pimaroni, which is like a electronics and Raspberry Pi sort of accessory manufacturer, they have a kit that is specifically put together for the Adventures in Raspberry Pi book.
Oh,
So if you
Oh,
buy the
awesome.
book, you can also buy this kit from Pimaroni, and it will have every piece that you need to do all the projects in that book.
as a newbie, I can't speak enough about Carrie Ann's book. If you follow that book from beginning to end, you will no longer be a newbie. It's so simply written. It lays it all out to you, gives you pictures, graphics, gives you good little pointers on the side. I think it was an awesome book to get you started with Raspberry Pis.
It comes with stickers. You can kind of badgeify your progress as you go through it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
It is. It's really good.
I'm like, the stickers? I miss the stickers,
Oh, hold on. Okay, good.
right? I remember that. Now, the other great thing that the Raspberry Pi Foundation has done, in addition to really recognizing and cultivating talent like Carrie Ann's, is to create a thriving community of educators who are working to find amazing things to do. And that's, what they've been supporting through their PiCademy work. There's also a very healthy network in the forums and on Twitter of teachers who've done great stuff with the Raspberry Pi. And if that weren't enough, I want to talk just a little bit about a project we mentioned earlier called AstroPi. Now, right now, in the International Space Station, there are 2 Raspberry Pi units orbiting, running the code that kids in England wrote. Let that sink in. Kid code in space. It's amazing, right? Space is huge, and space is just going to keep getting bigger. So that is something else, right? If you haven't been paying any attention to the news, you might not have seen that we have figured out how to stop throwing rockets away. And I've had an amazing time in my class recently showing kids the video of the Origin rocket like landing, or the other one that landed. There was one that landed in the desert and one that landed on a drone ship. And after the kids see it, they're like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "Does anyone know what we did before we could just land the rocket and use it again?" And they couldn't guess. And I said, "We threw them out into the ocean." And they're appalled. They can't believe that we would, spend all the time engineering this thing to get us into space and then just throw it away. AstroPi is amazing. Are you guys going to build? I'm actually waiting on a part to build my AstroPi. I'm waiting on
So I was really excited. So for my PiCademy experience, we got sort of early access to.
Hello, I think
that trip.
We lost you for a second there.
Yeah,
So,
keep dropping out. Sorry about that.
Right.
But my PiCademy project was using AstroPi. We made something called MagnaPi, which was in our prototype. It was using all the different sensors in AstroPi to detect out of the ordinary vibrations that may indicate earthquake. And then once that was triggered, it would send out tweets to alert people that in this specific area, warning for earthquakes using the AstroPi sensors.
Most recently, I know there was an AstroPi competition. I think it ended March 31st. So the competition was awesome because what it's doing, it's utilizing all the different parts of Raspberry Pi for this AstroPi competition. So you have a British, I believe he is the first British astronaut. His name is Tim Peake, up in space. And what the competition was students were able to compose music in Sonic Pi and send it up to Tim Peake to listen to on his off time as entertainment. So the competition was, I mean, I thought that's awesome because it's bringing in a whole different side of this new and cool way of making music called Sonic Pi, which I know we haven't talked much about, but it's pretty much a virtual DJ type of thing where you're coding music. And it's on the Raspberry Pi, so they allow kids to create their own music, send it up to him, have him jam out. He gets to choose which one was the best. That's an awesome competition that puts brings outer space at the fingertips of all the kids.
That is, I'm thinking of, was it the Girls Can Code?
Yeah.
Program that had the ability to program what the holiday lights in front of the White House would be this past winter.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes that to another level.
Made
We're
with
not
code.
doing it.
That was made with code.
Made with code. That's right.
Yep.
That's
yep.
now we're talking about space.
Right, and it's so exciting. There were two programs I remember outlined that were operating on the Astro Pi. One of them was called Sweaty Astronaut, and it used the humidity sensor in the Pi to detect when the astronauts were hanging out near the Astro Pi. The other one, and I still can't quite wrap my head around this, used the camera pointing down at the Earth to determine where it was, and then it displayed that country's flag.
Wow. Cool.
And that was just, super neat.
So the two Astro Pis, Ed and Izzy, that's their names. I know.
Ed and Izzy. One has a regular camera in it, and one has an infrared camera.
Yep. There you go.
So what I'm excited about for next year is I've been looking at how to use Raspberry Pis in class, and very much in the chat, I was talking a little bit with Paul, I think. Yeah, Paul, about what the Pis won't do, because initially I was just like, oh my goodness, this will be great. I could go one-to-one. Instead of having the kids working on iPads or laptops, I'll always have them working on Pis. And then I started testing stuff, and I realized that it just didn't really want to be that computer, right? It doesn't want to be a Chromebook. It really wants to be a Raspberry Pi, and it will run native Linux things really well. I can have the kids do word processing, but at the end, it's not going to be, online as they're doing it all the time.
Sam?
But what I'm going to do with them next year in 5th grade is, instead of having a iPad-centered tech curriculum, it's going to be much more of a Raspberry Pi-centered tech curriculum to prepare them to do amazing stuff with Pis in STEM class in 6th grade.
Sam, when you say that it doesn't want to be a Chromebook, can you explain what that means, or what limitations are you finding, or how does it tell you that it doesn't want to? Help us out here.
Where things are right now, the browsers that are available are essentially built on old versions of Chrome. So they've got an older version of Chrome that's been created for a lightweight Linux environment, and it doesn't have all of the newest security features. Like, when you go to work and you sign on to that computer that you never sign on to, and it pops up and it says this browser is out of date. That happens all of the time on the Raspberry Pi. Right. And from my experience with kids who run into that situation, it's a work stopper. So while I was thinking, initially I got super excited, I realized there was no way I could make these be everyday classroom use computers, especially if the teacher in charge of the room wasn't really super into it.
Right. It's not a computer per se where it's an everyday computer PC. It's more of a project-based computer. It's a computer to help you build projects that your average servo motor can't do. It brings things to life. It puts things on the internet for you, allows you to communicate and talk to things because they're on the internet. So it is a totally different type of computing. It's not a Mac. It's not a PC. It's literally in a field of its own. And I love using the word hackable computer because you can hack anything with it.
Right. I was really excited about redefining BYOD to build your own device. And Sam and I think talked about this a while back. It was a question of durability, not necessarily for the Pi, but for finding the case and the housing and the screen and all of those things to be durable enough for everyday use. Yeah, exactly. And those are great. And we have them. But I will say that I just recently swapped out our library catalog computer from a normal straight up Windows machine to a Raspberry Pi powered computer. And I'm just leaving out there, and kids are, jumping on and being like, "Oh, this is different. What is this?" And it's sort of just that entry point for me to start talking to them about, "Oh yeah, look at this Raspberry Pi it's connected to. Wait, that's the computer? Yeah, that's what it is. It's this in the monitor. How does it work?" Right? So it's just that little entry point for them that I find, because it's something that every day I have kids, searching the catalog for books or resources.
Yep.
So to have that be a Raspberry Pi powered computer, I think has been a really helpful way to get them a little bit exposed to it.
Now, I think for those who would like to create a laptop out of a Raspberry Pi, there is something called the Next Dock, which is a kit you can buy where you just throw in this Raspberry Pi into a laptop enclosure. But again, the Pi isn't a laptop. It's meant to be exposed. It's meant for you to be able to play with those GPIOs and be able to add sensors to it. And again, they sell all these awesome little sensors and these add-ons that you can add on to these Raspberry Pis, and it's simple coding, and you got a whole project right in front of you. It's amazing.
One of the kits that was mentioned earlier, you can build all kinds of things around this, was the Piper kit, and you shared the link of that. It is essentially a Minecraft arcade box, and the students, it comes with this big blueprint, and the blueprint walks the kids through assembling the laser cut plywood pieces to make the box and connecting the first part of the computer. And then there's a program on the computer that walks them through wiring up their own controller buttons and programming them. And when they're done, they've actually built their own 4-button controller that plays Minecraft in this box. And this is the kind of thing where I'm excited about it, but I'm not excited about it because I think every kid should have their own Minecraft arcade. And I'm not excited about it just because it's a Raspberry Pi, but I'm excited about it because it gets kids to build something out of wires and chips. And they can start not knowing what they're doing, and they finish, and suddenly they're the kind of person that can build something like that, right? And those kind of experiences where we can change students' self-perceptions are hugely powerful.
Sam, can we expand on that a little bit? You're using this with your students. How many Raspberry Pi devices does your room currently have available?
Well, right now, actually, I've got let me click over to my camera here so I can see what I'm doing. In my lab, you got a bunch of monitors and line them up. And each one of these has a Raspberry Pi keyboard and little Raspberry Pi box connected with it. I've got 12 of them in here right now. By the end of summer, I'll have 24.
Okay, so this is something that where your students can, let's say they come in on Monday and they start a Raspberry Pi project. And please help me if I'm saying their words the right way here. Now, do they disconnect everything after 45 minutes, or is this best if they put the Raspberry Pi in a plastic bin and then come back the following Monday? Or how do you do this with multiple kids, multiple classes?
Well, you can approach it a lot of different ways, and the way I'm going to approach it is going to be, there are going to be a couple different user accounts for that one Raspberry Pi. And if things don't work out for that, I will have little individual chips for each student.
I've done that one, Sam, where each kid has their own micro SD card.
Right.
All their inflows on their card, and all they do is swap out that card and with the Pis.
Now,
That's what we're currently doing now.
Yeah. So what I'm interested in, Marcos, if you've done this, is the tiny chip management. Right. I found these little portfolios that allow me to hold a bunch of them, but my kids lose a pencil walking across the room.
Okay.
So how do you keep track, or how would you suggest people keep track of 24 of these things that are the size of half of a postage stamp?
I use a simple bin system. Every class has their own bin. Every card is labeled with that student's name. They're not allowed to take these home yet. But I pretty much tell them that, you're not carrying a notebook. There's no, pen or pencil requirement. This is your requirement, which is your little card. This is the digital, your digital class portfolio, whatever. Everything you need is on this. So I try to micromanage that as much as possible, because you're right. These micro SD cards are very small.
How old are the kids you're working with, Marcos?
They're a little older. They are a little older, Sam. So I know you have a younger age.
I have K5, and I'm looking at doing these. I don't ever take the cards out of the computer with anyone under 4th grade. Like, just forget about it. There's no need to do it. If a card needs to be switched out, I do it. They know it's there. They know it's one of the parts they'd rather not touch. But once we get into 4th and 5th grade, we can start looking at, what different operating systems do. So they need to know about putting the cards in and out. I like the idea of the bin. Now, when you say you label them, I have like a super tiny Sharpie, and I try, but I can fit like 5 letters. Like, how do you label them?
I did what is that? Whiteout tape. A little small piece of whiteout tape with initials.
Okay. So then it's really important to put it in the right bin.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we have bins as well for each class, and each kid has a card with the adapter as well. But I mark up just the adapter and not the actual micro SD card in there, because I kind of assume, and I haven't been proven wrong yet, but I'm sure I will be at some point, that if we're missing one, I'll be able to sort of figure out, oh, we found one, and there's an adapter that's missing one. Hopefully the two will go together.
Yes. Kathy just sent this YouTube video about a folio for holding micro SD cards. I think I know the project she's talking about, because I tried to print one of these things once, and it was actually a little bit too small, and I never circled back around to resizing it to print it again.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Thank you, Kath. I've definitely seen that one.
I have not seen it. I'm gonna check it out.
So I'm looking at bringing this in as part of my 5th grade tech curriculum. What are you guys thinking about doing with Raspberry Pis over the next year?
In my district, we're now Union City's an urban district, and one of the things we struggle with, there are some households that don't have computers. That students just don't have computers in the home as per se. They use the public library, they use, whatever other means are necessary. So one of the things I've been looking to do is trying to bring in and get a bunch of Pis and then offer these to students who do not have computers as a way to bring computing into their homes. So it gives, because of the price point, and because it usually hooks up to a monitor, which are very, very cheap and easy to find. And most of the times you can find a secondhand one for free. A keyboard and a mouse, that's all you really need. So I was looking, first of all, to create a town-wide campaign of getting a computer to every kid who needs it in Union City. Aside from this, I'm also going to be bringing these into my STEM camps. So every summer in Union City, we host the Union City Summer STEM Camps. This is going to be literally a course in itself in the STEM camp. It's only a 2-week camp, so which gives me more than enough time to introduce the Pi, what it is, how it works, basic functions, basics in Minecraft, Python, and then do the same. I love the PiCademy structure. So they introduce everything that the Pi can do, and then throw them into create your own hackathon. So I'm looking to do that same thing, is show them everything that the power of the Pi, and then let their imaginations and creativity run wild, and let me know what you would love to see happen with this Pi.
Nice.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, we're currently, I currently run, I was totally inspired by you, Sam, to start putting together a Build Your Own Computer club here for our middle school students. We've been running that here in the library for a couple of months now. And that's been, it's been awesome for that group of kids who sort of have the flexibility to come in and explore things and build a little bit. It's been great, but I'm also much more interested in the curricular tie-ins. And so I've been working with the 5th and 6th grade technology and science teachers that we have here, specifically around sort of bridging that gap between digital and analog. And, we use things like Makey Makey, we use things like Little Bits to try and, get some physical interactivity, some inputs and outputs going there. But specifically looking at Scratch GPIO as a great bridge for tying together sort of the experiences and the knowledge base that the students have around Scratch and programming, and bring that into the physical computing world where they can have a little bit more control over physical objects in their environment, and then use that as the launching pad for, okay, we have this, we kind of understand how this works now. Can we abstract it a little bit more? We start modifying some of the projects that we can find in the Raspberry Pi forum, like you were talking about, Marcos.
Yeah.
Sam, you're muted.
That was just a moment to think. It's amazing to me we've made it this far into the show and we haven't talked at all about design thinking. And the whole, we've talked about the maker movement and prototyping, but if you're in a situation where your school is like, design thinking sounds really cool and STEM sounds really cool and I wish we could do something with it, you can take your current science fair experience and recast it in the world of problem solving and design thinking with Raspberry Pi at the center of it, and have kids build awesome things, right? So you could have, what brand of cat food do possums prefer, right? And you could have
inquiring minds want to know.
Right, you could have an infrared camera set up. It could record the possums as they come. You could log that data. You could say, well, this one was visited this number of times. This one was visited this number of times. There was a student at our school. You guys aren't going to believe this. He designed a system. His STEM Fair project was to design a system that crowdsourced audio recording in a lecture hall. So there would be a recording running all the time. And when you felt what was being said was something that was noteworthy, you would indicate it on your device. And at the end of the lecture, it would have all of the most popular points indicated on the recording. So you could go in and listen to the most important parts.
How old?
Sixth grade.
Wow.
And it worked. Like he goes, see, it works. And then you've got the teachers on their device and me on my device, and the whole thing's recording right over there. And the great thing about having this Pi workstation set up in here, he actually comes in with his little gallon Ziploc bag. It's got his Raspberry Pi in it with his, microphone and all of his cables. And he's like, can I borrow a workstation? And he jacks into the workstation and he's good to go, right? And that's, where I'm hoping that we're going, right? Is you just have these kids walking around with their devices. They just need a workstation to jack into, and they can do just about anything.
I think you brought up a great point with the design thinking process, and it's just a natural fit with the Raspberry Pi because, just the simple coding side of the Pi, when you're in Python and you're writing this code to see if you can get this little light to blink with a strobe effect. And I always found myself, especially at PiCademy, it wasn't working. And I always had to go back a few steps, check my code, check this, check that. So it is such a natural fit with the design think process. But when you then open up and look at it from a bigger picture and from the creating projects and taking the data to analyze and to evaluate, to come up with your own conclusions, it is a marriage that is just perfect.
Right. I've often thought, we talked about how amazing the projects at PiCademy were after a day of working, if sort of prototyping, and then we went through the rest of the process and we got feedback and we iterated on that and we continued to sort of go through that sort of iteration process. If we did that for a week, how much greater would those projects be? Given, there's really no upper limit to what you can do with all this stuff.
Right, and what was so powerful wasn't, the PiCademy people gave us a little bit of information to work with and then put us in groups of dedicated people working. So, I was co-working with Kathy and Marcos trying to solve these problems and figure out what was going on. Bringing it back
we had some major problems in our group. We had a lot of breaking down, a lot of going back, fixing things. We actually had the Raspberry Pi people scratching their heads at a couple of points because, is it the sensor? Is it this? Is it the code?
The wrong Python library, yeah.
Right.
Like, it's double quotes versus single quotes. And, this kind of thing that you get to, and the resources were right there, which was awesome. But, it's that process of working together and figuring it out that we want to get the kids into. We want to give them access to. When during parent-teacher conferences this past time, I was talking to our parents, and one of them said, "Oh yeah, Raspberry Pi. We work with those at work all the time. And we're trying to figure out solutions for such and so." And he was an engineer, and these are just part of one of the main tools they're using. Believe it or not, guys, we're just about at the end of the hour here.
Wow.
What?
Right? We've talked about what PiCademy USA is. We talked about how awesome Raspberry Pis are. We talked not nearly for long enough about how awesome Carrie Ann Philbin is.
There's no way we can talk enough about that.
Yeah, not only Carrie Ann, everyone else, Ben, Mark Scott, who was in charge of the curriculum side of things, Philip, the actual head honcho of Raspberry Pi was at PiCademy with us, which was amazing. That's blown away. Matt Richardson, who's in charge of the U.S. operations, was there as well. So, it's an amazing team. It's not, just Carrie Ann. It was an amazing, amazing team.
There was sometime in the middle of the first day when I looked around and I realized that I owned 2 books about Raspberry Pi and both of the authors were in the room. I was just like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And then
as soon as I walked in and saw Carrie Ann, I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, that's the girl, the cartoon from the book.
That's the girl from the cartoon from the book. We should get her a t-shirt.
3 steps removed.
Right? I'm the girl from the cartoon from the book.
If people want to know more, so where would you send people who are now saying like, well, I want to learn more about PiCademy, I want to learn more about Raspberry Pi?
Sign up. Well, open enrollment. You have to get in, man, to see what it's all about. And as soon as I got back and they mentioned there's going to be more classes, I already started developing a list of guys and ladies who I knew would be a perfect fit for PiCademy and tweeting them and let them know right away, you have to get into this.
Yeah, so there's a PiCademy hashtag. Watch that. There in the show notes, we will have links to Raspberry Pi Foundation as well as directly to the PiCademy USA website. I have heard rumors, and I love spreading rumors, that they are thinking about a PiCademy training in the Midwest sometime in July, and that they're also thinking about one on the East Coast following that.
New York.
I heard that as well, Sam. So from your lips to Carrie Ann's ears.
I'm hoping if they throw one in New York, I can crash that one because that would be awesome.
Well, and that's one of the really exciting things about what's going on right now with the Raspberry Pi Foundation and PiCademy USA is that they're looking for people who are going to be willing to do these kinds of trainings. And, if you're a teacher who's in the tech space and working with a lot of people, you end up doing trainings, right? So you could be training for Google, you could be training for Microsoft, you could be training for the very powerful Linux certified educator mafia
lobby,
or the Linux lobby, that powerful
Apple Academy.
Yeah, the Apple folks, right? They've got a couple trainers out there too, don't they? Or you could also have this in your menu of tools.
Yeah.
So let's go around and get from everybody kind of where their blog is and how we can find you. Marcos, start us off.
All right. Well, I'm obviously on Twitter, Mr. Novice. Please follow me. I'm always tweeting out great Raspberry Pi stuff with Sam and David, 3D printing stuff. Also, techtinkandteach.com. Techtinkandteach.com. The link for my blog, I think it's up in the chat somewhere. I'll put it back up there as well. And obviously, please, Raspberry Pi, just check them out. Check out their website. Check out the educators' resources. Awesome stuff.
Cool. I would add one more resource to that. I've been working with Franz Davis and Nick Provenzano on Oregon Jam event at ISTE. So if you are going to be at ISTE, I think the tentative date is the 28th of June. We're going to be sending out an invite soon for that.
It will be
Right. I'm going to be running Raspberry Pi jams in New Jersey in the tri-state area if anyone's interested as well, out of the Maker Depot. So we're going to be putting out some dates very, very soon that will be strictly Raspberry jams where you can come down, have the opportunity of buying your Raspberry Pis there as well. So we'll have a mini store of pies available for anyone who comes down, but then giving them that experience of what the power of the Raspberry Pi is.
And then the Raspberry Jams, you can look for those on Twitter. You can look for them on the website. If there are maker clubs in your area, look to see if anybody there is running a Raspberry Jam. Any opportunity you can have to get somewhere and get your hands on them and really get a sense of what they can do, try to take advantage of that. I'm Sam Patterson, and you can find my work on mypaperlessclassroom.com as well as Beyond the Hour of Code. And Jeff, I think that brings us to the end of this super awesome show.
This was a great show, and of course, we are still live over on TeacherCast.tv as we are every week. If you're interested in sticking around for our live show, we welcome you to join us over on TeacherCast.tv. Sam, did you know that TeacherCast is going to be transforming over the next couple days?
I was on EdSearch the other day reading about the upcoming changes to TeacherCast.
You were?
Yes, they quoted the Edutopia article that was talking about the whole new makeover coming to TeacherCast and how excited the whole industry really was about it.
Wait a minute. Where did they get their information?
I believe they got their information from CNN, but I'm not sure.
I was trying to figure out where you're going with all of this. So this show here will be archived over at techeducatorpodcast.com. If you are listening live, give me a couple days. Hopefully by the next week. Next week, by the way, guys, we are doing Google Drawings with our good friend Casey Bell's going to be in here. So lots of good stuff. My goal is to have a brand new chat box, brand new website, brand new everything. So stick around for that. Lots of great stuff happening here. TeacherCast is turning 5 years old this summer, and I felt it was time. So look for this soon. Subscribe to all of our stuff over on Twitter. You can find us at TeacherCast. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. Email us at feedback@teachercast.net. And I hope these links stay for next week and beyond. teachercast.net/iTunes and teachercast.net/YouTube. Sam, Dave, Marco, thank you so much for a great show. I hope you guys get a chance to be a PiCademy or a Pi-udemic, or what's the right word? A Pi scholar? A what?
Certified Raspberry Pi educator.
A certified Raspberry Pi. I'm hungry now. Guys, thank you so much for watching this show. Brand new TeacherCast coming up in a few days here, so stick by the site, and thank you guys so much for sharing it with everybody. On behalf of everybody here on TeacherCast, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions on your Raspberry Pi.